Thank you, friendship and shalom. Greetings to you all. I recently returned from an almost Eden-like place. As I walked along, I watched deer saunter through streets and gardens as cars drove by or stopped, and raccoons hang from trees eating what they wanted. I watched the sun rise and set between oceans and mountains, and I was humbled and touched by your many notes and comments. Thank you. All of you who joined me last year, whether for the year or just for a week. Thank you. And you are always welcome to stop by. You're such a lovely audience. I'd like to take you home with me. I'd love to take you home. And I do. Welcome to another year of Torah. Well, friends, it was a great trip to end the year, and it has just been a whirlwind of events ever since. I returned and I was sickened by the jihadist stabbing attack in Jerusalem on the Sabbath. And on Sunday night, I got a call from an old dear friend, 3,500 miles away, who got a call from someone who recognized the pain they were in, the suffering they were going through. I needed to connect to her spiritual roots and wanted to go to a synagogue or talk to a rabbi, and happened to be in the same city as me. It was the aunt of the young couple with the infant who were attacked in Jerusalem, and we spoke, we got together, and I realized that terror knows no geographic boundary. Miriam, I am thinking of you. Eunice Adele, her deceased husband Aharon, their baby Matan. There are tears for things and what we suffer. Touches the heart. We are with you in your need. We pray for you and them during this time of grief. And dear Alex, who lost her best friend Wilhelm on Tuesday on Simchat Torah. Our sages say the most elevated of souls cross over on holy days. It speaks to the circularity of life and learning. And so it is with the soul. He will always be a part of you, and your connection will continue in the echoes of eternity. Now, I hope you all had a great celebration of learning the other night, filled with dancing, drinking, and fun. And as we read the final chapter of the Torah, we should appreciate the significance of the Jewish practice of returning immediately to Genesis 1 anew. It conveys the point, unlike something like Aesop's fables, where each story stands alone, with each new reading, each episode in the Torah and the entire Bible stands in relation to the whole. You read each part, keeping the whole in mind. And so our concern is with the totality as well as the individual parts. The beginning of the Torah is filled with hints, allusions, and foretelling of things to come, from the cherubim which guard the garden and then guard the ark, Cain's fear of his face being hidden from God, to God hiding his face from man. Friends, the immediate losses, the Garden of Eden, the Tree of Life, not destroyed in Genesis. They are merely rendered inaccessible. The initial divine human alienation that is marked by the eviction from paradise is not necessarily to be understood as final. The possibility of human return exists, and return is a central concept of Judaism. It is a book which involves a looking forward and a looking back, a linking of past and future. It is a strange concept of time, linear and cyclical at the same time, historical and timeless at the same time. It is the first known work of history on earth, telling a record of events through a progression of time on a line. Yet we read that record in a cyclical manner, always returning to the beginning. Whether one believes all or part or none of its history to be true is a separate matter. The literary point is that this had the effect of producing a text that was rich in background. Every event carries the weight of everything that comes before it. And the historical point is that this was a new way to conceive of time and human destiny. And its God was different, creating all of nature, and therefore not knowable or identifiable through any one element. One could learn no more about this God by contemplating the sea than by contemplating grain, sky, fire, or anything else. The essence of this God remains hidden. One does not know God through nature, but by the divine acts in history. Now, friends, Rashi's comments have stood for 1,000 years. But do not be afraid to initiate your own comments, to see it new in your life. It is a tree of life, and all trees live, grow, change. Like some films that begin with a sweeping shot and then narrows, so the first chapter of Genesis moves gradually from a picture of the skies and the earth down to the first man and woman. The story's focus will continue to narrow from the universe to the earth, to humankind, to specific lands and peoples, to a single family. It opens in controversy. The translation of its first line can be the subject of a book. The concern of the Hebrew Bible generally is history, not the cosmos. But Genesis 1 is an exception. Now, the King James Bible, the one used more than any other, says, "In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth." The JPS Tanakh, the oldest and most common of the Hebrew translations, says, "In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth." You picture something coming from nothing. What it actually says is, "Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim va'et haaretz." Its literal translation is, "In the beginning of God's creating the skies and the earth." And whether Elohim, the plural, and therefore is the gods or not, hey, that too can be the subject of books. But it sets out an unfolding of the 7 days of creation. It's already written that today will be one to remember. You see, it is not history from the beginning of time, which the other translations tend to suggest. It is from a fixed time, from a pre-existing condition. The Torah does not claim to report everything that has occurred since the beginning of space and time. It does not say, "In the beginning God created the skies and the earth." It rather says, "In the beginning of God's creating the skies and the earth, when the earth had been shapeless and formless." That is, there is pre-existing matter, which is in a state of watery chaos. Subsequent matter, dry land, heavenly bodies, plants, animals, may be formed out of this undifferentiated fluid. And creation becomes a series of separations. And in each separation, a name is given to distinguish it. The only thing created from nothing is actually light. And we will see the theme of separations and distinguishing over and over again throughout everything we read from this day forward. And because of this watery chaos, we can understand biblical man's picture of our earth as a bubble with water all around, kind of like a glass dome, which had the waters above and the waters below. Rambam called it a tent. Now, this book has stood an amazing test of time and invites unending analysis. The rabbinic sage, Rabbi Lakish, once wondered why the Hebrew text in Genesis used a seemingly redundant, definite article in the phrase, and it was evening and it was morning, the sixth day. You see, the definite article, the, is not used for the preceding 5 days. Now, he took this to be a hidden reference to the 6th day of the month of Sivan, when, according to tradition, as told in the Babylonian Talmud, Shabbat 88a, the Torah was given to Israel to teach us that the Holy One made a condition with all created things, saying to them, "If Israel accepts the Torah, you will continue to exist. If not, I shall return you to welter and waste." Now, this is an extraordinary notion to entertain about the cosmic status of a book, imagining that the very existence of the world depends on it and on Israel's embrace of it. Friends, Jewish tradition abounds in such extravagant celebrations of the supreme importance of this book. What is it about this text that led to such a vision of its unique standing? Are the 5 literary units that it comprises, in fact, one book or 5? How were they brought together? What are we to call them? Now, we've taken one of the books, the Book of Instruction, Torah, to be the title of the whole. And over its history, it has been most commonly called the Pentateuch in Greek or the Chumash in Hebrew, both of which mean 5, or the 5 books. Now, the standard account offered by modern scholars of the Torah identifies 4 principal literary strands: J, the Yahwistic strand; E, the Elohistic strand; P, the priestly strand; and D for Deuteronomy. Now, the first 3 are unevenly intertwined throughout Genesis, Exodus, Numbers. P predominates in Leviticus, and all of Deuteronomy is D. But most of us grew up being told Moses wrote them all. We have learned so much archaeologically and scholarly that we just did not know before. But it doesn't matter. What matters is what these books mean, what they teach or instruct, what they represent, especially to the Jewish people. One need not claim that Genesis is a single artwork, like, say, a novel by Hemingway, in order to grant it integrity as a book. The Bible is the most important book in Western literature. It governs our society in so many ways. Now, we're not conducting a history seminar, but we will look to history and language and politics and religious development in our learning to understand how this book ties a faith together. The Torah tells us, my friends, more than once that we must examine it in every generation, that we must ask new questions, get new answers. That is how an organic book can still have the impact that it does. Its language and its words are crucial. It should be kept in mind that we have an approximate notion, not an exact one, of how biblical Hebrew was originally pronounced. There is some question about vowels, in particular because vowel points were added to the text by the Masoretes, the Hebrew scholars of 6th to 10th century Tiberius, who fixed the text of the Bible with full punctuation, standard since then, but more than a millennium after the texts were composed. There was, however, a continuous tradition for recitation of the texts on which the Masoretes drew. Genesis, my friends, is the only one of the 5 books that is more or less a continuous narrative from beginning to end. It's a book of opposites. Genesis begins with the making of heaven and earth and all life, and ends with the image of a mummy, Joseph's, in a coffin. But it too is made of parts. Genesis comprises 2 large literary units: the primeval history, chapters 1 to 11, and the patriarchal tales, chapters 12 to 50. The two differ not only in subject, but to some extent in style and perspective. By and large, the first 11 chapters of Genesis are concerned with origins, not eventualities, with the past, not with the future. The patriarch tales begins a turn to the eventuality of man, because God is constantly referring to a promise for down the road. The primeval history, in contrast to what follows, cultivates a kind of narrative that is fable-like, legendary, sometimes even mythic. Human actors in these stories are kept at a certain distance and seem far more generalized types than individual characters with distinctive personal histories. It opens with a narrative of origins, creation, and the garden story. That is compelling in its archetypal characters. Its adaptation of myth to monotheistic ends, and that has set the term symbolically, not scientifically, for much of the way we've thought about human nature and culture ever since. And this legendary sequence is followed by a different kind of narrative in the patriarch tales. Nowhere else in ancient literature, my friends, have the quirkiness and unpredictability of individual character and the frictions and tensions of family life. Sibling rivalry, the jealousy of co-wives, the extravagance of parental favoritism, been registered with such subtlety and insight. And they are still played out to this day. Have we learned nothing? Or is this part of the flaw we will read about, and which we were so reminded of in the Song of Moses that ends the book? As we read just a week or so ago, a steadfast God without wrong, true and right is he. Did he act ruinously? No. His son's the fault, a perverse and twisted brood. As Pink Floyd sang and breathed, long you live and high you fly, and smiles you'll give and tears you'll cry, and all you touch and all you see is all your life will ever be. We could spend the entire year, my friends, just on this opening parsha, or certainly the first 2, Bereshit and Noach, for they deal with the cosmic. When we shift to the beginning of the Abrahamic and patriarch tales, the book is taken in an entirely different direction. But we're not going to. We cover the 5 books in a year, and what we talk about simply scratches the surface. Let it germinate. Let it percolate. Let it make you wonder, make you question, make you stretch, make you grow. We could talk about Eden. We could talk about the serpent, the 2 special trees, The two creation stories and how they are put together. The two flood stories, how they are put together. The strange story about the angels. We can talk about the 22 uses of the words for God made, saw, created, and how they play out the unfolding of our universe. Element by element, season by season, planet by planet. A series of divisions and separations, all from one, as are we. We can count in Genesis 3, the snake episode, at least 10 origins for things in life. From why snakes go in their bellies to why we mate. From why we work to why we feel embarrassed. From knowledge of good and bad to death. We see that man was designed to live forever, so there was no need for an afterlife. He could eat from the tree of life, but not from the tree of knowledge of good and bad. We can focus on how creation culminates with one of the most enigmatic and controversial sentences in the Bible. Genesis 1:26. And God said, "Let us make a human in our image, by our likeness, to hold sway over the fish of the sea and the fowl of the heavens." Let us! The great story of monotheism begins in the plural. We can spend an enormous amount of time just on that sentence alone. And friends, in the second creation story, we were given the most important law of all, and the most important gift we may have, the gift of being 100% godlike, as we witness the creation of sacred time. Genesis 2:4. And God blessed the seventh day and hallowed it, for on it he had ceased from all his task that he had created to do. Ceased. Shabbat. In our observation of the one item, we create the story of creation. We honor the Creator. We pay tribute to everything else in the Torah that we read. As I have said before to those of you who have joined me in the past, and as I say now, and as I will say again, if you choose but one commandment, one law, one rule to follow, it is this one, which will be reiterated as the fourth of the 10 Commandments, to remember and sanctify the Sabbath. If I do that, I acknowledge creation and a force greater than I. I don't have to name it, understand it, honor it. I recreate it, and I regenerate. The culmination of the creation story, my friends, is not the creation of man, but the creation of sacred time, the ceasing. Friends, the first thing in the Torah to be rendered holy is a unit in the passage of time. Now, I won't spend time on it, but in the Hebrew, you can see where the second creation story comes in and how well it was woven into the first. But they are different, and the term for God is different, but most of you will never notice it because of how you've been taught to read it. There are also two themes that dominate both the Torah and quite often our lives, which originate here in the same story. The sacredness of life. The shedding of blood pollutes the land. And there is such a powerful image of sound. As God says, "What have you done?" The sound. Your brother's blood is crying to me from the ground. And the second, sibling rivalry and the displacement of the firstborn by the younger. Read it slowly, my friends. Do not jump to conclusion. This one parsha unfolds the story of man. As creation 1 is finished, God observes that everything is very good. Genesis 1:31. And God saw everything that he had made, and here it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the 6th day. And as the parsha winds down from Genesis 6:5 to 6:8, it's not so good anymore. And the Lord saw that the evil of the human creature was great on the earth, and that every scheme of his heart's devising was only perpetually evil. And the Lord regretted having made the human on earth and was grieved to the heart. And the Lord said, "I'll wipe out the human who I've created from the face of the earth, because I regret that I made them." Friends, do not have an evil heart. It's up to you. I want to live. I want to give. I've been a miner for a heart of gold. It's these expressions I never give that keep me searching for a heart of gold. You all have hearts of gold. Now let us take a minute and send healing energy out to Alex, to Miriam, her niece Adele, and baby Matan. Speedily recover in the love of all. Friends, let's we need to pray for these people. You know, there has to be an end to hatred and terror. Mi sheberach imotenu makor habracha limotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing. And let us say, Amen. Send out healing energy to anyone you know in need. And there are people in need, my friends. The world is sacred. And so is everything in it. Express your gratitude, light a candle, make a wish, celebrate your life and the lives of those you love. Share your feelings with them. Live free, be free, honor your freedom, be well, be happy, be blessed. Share and honor the light and all who live in the light and continue to shine. Continue to send everyone you know goodwill and love. Pray for peace, for freedom for everyone, an end to terror, an end to hatred. Remember, friends, we are a community. We learn together, we celebrate each other, we love each other. We share this ride together, men and women equally. Let us send out love, not fear. Fall in love, friends. It is the great gamble. Ask questions. Do not take because as an answer. Break free of dogma. Change your way of thinking. You are the crown of creation. You're the crown of creation. You got no place to go. Thank you all. Love you. See you all next time. And I do love seeing you all again. And remember, your wishes do come true. As Al Cooper saying, last night I had a dream that the world was changing by leaps and bounds. It started up in the bigger cities, then it spread to the smaller towns. It's a brand new day, brand new way. It's a brand new day. Let's make this a brand new day, my friends. Bless you all. Have a fantastic week. Thank you for joining me as we begin the year again. Bereshit, in the beginning. Shabbat Shalom.